Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar, and on the show today from the United States, protests in Los Angeles which have inspired protests in other major cities across the country have escalated in response to Donald Trump's immigration policies and raids from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And more demonstrations are planned nationwide this week and weekend. We'll bring you all the latest detail on that front.
Also, tensions in the West Asian region. The U.S. state and its Defense Department is withdrawing some diplomats and military families from locations around West Asia. The planned departures come as tensions involving Iran and Israel have recently escalated as the Trump administration continues to pursue a new nuclear deal with Iran. We'll bring you all the latest on that with a special guest right here on World DNA. Let's start with the headlines.
Well, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But they are being, we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens. It's a great honor.
President Donald Trump says U.S. personnel are being moved from the potentially dangerous West Asia amid tensions with Iran, after Tehran said it was capable of hitting U.S. bases across the region if conflict breaks out.
National Guard and Marines undergo civil disturbance training at a Navy SEAL beach ahead of the deployment in Los Angeles to quell the protests against anti-immigration crackdown.
A group of 17 Palestinian children, including an 11-year-old boy who lost 9 siblings in an Israel strike in Gaza last month, arrived in Italy for medical treatment.
Russia shares undated footage claiming to show its Tu-22 aircraft, the same model which was reported to have been damaged in the Ukrainian attack Operation Spiderweb on Russian airfields.
Violence erupts for a third straight night in Northern Ireland's Ballymena. Police deploy water cannons to disperse rioters.
Meghalaya police officials say that special investigation team planning to take suspects in Raja Raghuvanshi murder to reconstruct the crime. Shillong court remands victim's wife Sonam and 4 other accused to 8 days of police custody.
And as weather agency sounds red alert for heat wave conditions in capital Delhi as maximum temperature settled over 43 degrees on Wednesday with a feel-like value of nearly 52 degrees Celsius.
Asia-Pacific markets were mixed after Donald Trump said that a China trade deal is done, though 55% tariffs remain. Japan slipped, South Korea and Australia rose, and investors await inflation data from the Philippines and Thailand.
World Anti-Doping Agency calls on U.S. authorities to prevent enhanced games from taking place next year. The global watchdog said the drug-fueled games are dangerous. Now, Donald Trump has said that U.S. personnel are being moved from the potentially dangerous West Asia.
And this is amid faltering nuclear talks with Iran and growing fears of a regional conflict yet again.
They are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. But they are being, we've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens.
Now, this after U.S. officials said that staff levels at the embassy in Iraq are being reduced over security concerns, while there were reports that personnel were also being moved from Kuwait and Bahrain. The United States has multiple bases in West Asia, with the largest located in Qatar.
A U.S. official said that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth authorized the voluntary departure of military dependents from locations across West Asia, as Washington is on high alert in anticipation of a potential Israeli strike on Iran.
Now, amid the escalating tensions, the UK maritime trade operations run by the British Navy also advised ships to use caution while passing through the Gulf of Oman, and the Straits of Hormuz.
The decision to move U.S. personnel from West Asia comes after Iran threatened to target U.S. bases across Middle East if the conflict breaks out.
However, Trump reiterated that he would not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
God willing, it won't come to that, and the talks will yield results. But if they don't, and conflict is imposed on us, the enemy's losses will undoubtedly be greater than ours. In that case, America will have to leave the region, because all its bases are within our reach. We have access to them, and without hesitation, we will target all of them in the host countries.
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to allow that.
Since returning to office in January, Trump has revived his maximum pressure campaign on Tehran, backing nuclear diplomacy, but warning of military action if it fails.
Tehran and Washington have held 5 rounds of talks since April to thrash out a new nuclear deal to replace the 2015 accord that Trump abandoned during his first term in 2018. Now, these two sides were due to meet again in the coming days, and the US president says that he pressed Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to hold off striking Iran's nuclear facilities to give the talks a chance, but has increasingly signaled that he is losing patience.
Meanwhile, Iran's nuclear chief Mohammad Eslami called the International Atomic Energy Report on the country's nuclear program a blatant lie. The IAEA said last month that Iran carried out secret nuclear activities with material not declared to the UN nuclear watchdog at 3 locations that have long been under investigation.
They falsely claim that the Islamic Republic of Iran has not fulfilled its obligations under the Non-Proliferation Treaty. This is a blatant lie. There is no evidence to support this.
And to discuss more, we are now being joined by Colonel David B. Fortes from Washington, D.C. He is a professor at Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have to talk with you.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into this now. I would like to begin by asking you, how dangerous and serious do you think this whole situation has become, with U.S. already ordering all these officials to leave these the West Asian countries?
Well, it's a voluntary departure. So only in Baghdad have they ordered non-essential personnel to leave. That makes sense because that's the country where Iran has the greatest sway. There are a large number of state-funded militias in Iraq who are actually responsive to the orders of Iran. So that has always been a dangerous spot for us. In the other countries, it's voluntary departure of dependents. So it indicates that, you know, with the cessation of the nuclear talks, which the Trump administration has realized aren't going to lead to Iran giving up enrichment, that there is a possibility of conflict, probably from Israel rather than the United States, and it would be a good move to get civilians, family members, military people out of the area.
Colonel David, when these talks started, the first 3 rounds, if you remember, both sides were saying that they're positive about it. There were some irritants which were pretty visible, but then both sides were saying that they are positive. Towards the 5th round, and now we had another round of talks scheduled for this weekend. US said it was scheduled for a little earlier in the week. Iran said it was on Sunday. And there was a slight difference that we were saying. But how have things gone south so fast that there's a voluntary departure happening from Iraq of military families and, of course, US personnel?
Yeah, so actually, that's not uncommon. So it was around the 3rd round that things started to go awry. Usually the first 2 rounds of talks, 2 or 3, are about determining what the format will be for negotiations and future talks, how people are going to do that, what issues, it's setting an agenda, things like that. Once you dive into the substance, that's where the problems start. And, I had spoken with many Iranians during this period, and they all said that, well, we have these red lines, and the red lines that the Iranians have claimed are incompatible with the U.S. aims in entering the talks. So it was inevitable that it would crash out sooner or later. The only question was how soon. I think one of the key factors here is President Trump is operating on a very accelerated timetable. He's well aware that the Iranians hope to wait him out and get a president they think is easier to deal with, which in Trump's view is what happened the last time he was president. So President Trump, I believe, had a limited time for these negotiations to take effect, and then said, okay, we're going to, see what the Israelis can do and then maybe do something ourselves.
Understood. And Colonel, would that mean that the talks which were upcoming in just a matter of a few more days, are they stalled now? Are these talks over? Should that be the conclusion one draws from this, or that's too early to say it?
It's too early to say. There's 2 possibilities. So one possibility is that having hit an impasse, these steps are being taken to show Iran that we're serious and that they better make some concessions. They've asserted a number of inviolatable principles, but a principle is only inviolatable until you have enough pressure and tension on you that, abandoning that is in your best interest. The other possibility is that this final meeting will just be say, okay, I'm sorry this didn't work out, and when we've done what we're going to do, you can come back and we'll start from a different baseline.
Right, and I also want to ask you now, all these families and basically civilians, and you said these are voluntary, but these are like people evacuating from West Asia. Will that in any way impact US's influence in any manner in West Asian region with their all these evacuations going on?
It has the possibility of doing so, because what it does is it implies that countries which are dependent on foreign investment are not safe, foreign investment and civilian trade. But the other main driver in these countries is tourism, and given that it's June, we're kind of into the period when tourists don't really go to the Gulf. So the 2 countries that have the civilian departures, Kuwait and Bahrain, they are usually too hot for tourism this time of year. So I think the damage will be limited. And I think both of these countries, particularly Bahrain, is very, very wary of Iran and probably supports the effort here.
Colonel David, always a pleasure speaking with you. You've shed light on what may possibly happen as of now. Too early to call off the talks. We'll need to wait and watch what goes on between US and Iran. There's no official statement yet on what happens in the coming weekend, so we'll wait for that. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure speaking with you.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Well, and we're moving to West Asia now. The Israeli military has recovered the bodies of 2 hostages from Gaza.
And this is including Yair Yaakov, one of the many civilians abducted during the Hamas-led October 7th attack in 2023 on Israel. The discovery comes as Israel continues its military campaign in the Gaza Strip amid growing international scrutiny.
Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed the news and said the Israeli government will not rest until all the hostages, whether living or deceased, are brought home. Yaakov, who was 59 at the time of his abduction, was taken from his home in Kibbutz Nir Oz on October 7, 2023.
Meanwhile, tensions are rising at the Egypt-Gaza border as well, where convoys of pro-Palestinian activists are attempting to reach Rafah, drawing sharp criticism from Israeli officials. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz is calling on Egypt to block what he calls jihadist protesters, quote-unquote, from reaching the Egypt-Israel border. He warns their presence could endanger Israeli soldiers.
Now, his comments come as hundreds of pro-Palestinian activists made their way towards Gaza. Two convoys, the Somoud convoy and the Global March to Gaza, are making their way towards the border. Activists are hoping to break Israel's blockade and bring humanitarian attention to Gaza, which the United Nations now calls the hungriest place on earth.
Now, according to the Hamas-controlled health ministry in Gaza, 36 Palestinians were killed and more than 200 were injured while trying to access aid in Gaza on Wednesday.
Egypt has responded cautiously, stating support for international pressure on Israel to lift the blockade, but warns that no foreign delegation will be allowed near Rafah without prior approval.
Reportedly, several activists, including French nationals, have either been detained or confined to their hotels.
Among them is French nurse Carole Laguati, who shared a video claiming her group's passports were confiscated by Egyptian police.
Now, in a separate development, US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, has accused Hamas of attacking one of its humanitarian convoys. The aid group alleges that the attack claimed 5 lives and left several others injured.
Meanwhile, in France, tensions flared in the National Assembly over the detainment of pro-Palestinian activists aboard a Gaza-bound boat that was intercepted by Israeli forces earlier this week. The intercepted sailboat, Madeleine, was carrying 12 activists, including French member of European Parliament, Rima Hassan. French Prime Minister François Bayrou accused the activists of politicizing the crisis, while opposition lawmakers from the left denounced what they called France's failure to defend its citizens abroad.
Amid diplomatic friction and humanitarian concerns, France and Saudi Arabia are planning to co-host a UN meeting later this month. The meeting will aim at recognizing a Palestinian state and advancing the two-state solution. And over to the US now, demonstrators are again taking to the streets in Los Angeles.
Now, this as protests against anti-immigration crackdown continue in the second largest U.S. city. People are taking to the streets just ahead of another night of limited curfew set to come into force.
Protesters gathered outside a federal building in downtown Los Angeles. Demonstrators marched, they danced and sang in front of Edward R. Roybal Federal Building as members of the California National Guard and Los Angeles Police Department stood in formation nearby.
Protests over President Donald Trump's immigration raids have spread from California to other U.S. cities, with hundreds of nationwide demonstrations planned for weekend. More than 1,800 anti-Trump demonstrations are planned across the country by activist groups. These will happen on the same day. Tanks and other military vehicles will roll through the streets of Washington, D.C. in a parade marking the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary, coinciding with Trump's 79th birthday.
Now, a major protest took place in San Antonio, city of Texas. Hundreds gathered in the city's central area and marched near City Hall. The protesters were led by a drummer and they continued chanting in Spanish, saying, and I quote them here, "We are here and aren't leaving." Protests in San Antonio come a day after the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, ordered the state's National Guard to deploy to the city of San Antonio. The order in view of the immigration-related protests planned for this week, saying the soldiers are on standby. Abbott's move to mobilize troops follows Donald Trump's decision to send the California National Guard and Marines into Los Angeles.
About 700 Marines and over 2,000 National Guards are still undergoing civil disturbance training at Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach in Orange County. The Sherman would not speculate about when the Marines might join the 2,000 or so Guard troops that have been deployed in downtown areas to protect federal buildings during sometimes violent demonstrations against President Trump's immigration crackdown. Now, Sherman is commander of Task Force 51, which is overseeing the more than 4,000 guard troops and 700 Marines who have been deployed to Los Angeles to provide security during the protests.
And for more on this story, our correspondent Susan Tehrani sent us this report from New York.
A wave of immigration-related unrest continues to unfold in Los Angeles, California, and is now spreading nationwide. LA Mayor Karen Bass has extended tonight's curfew, now in effect from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. after 5 consecutive days of demonstrations that included arrests, vandalism, and also clashes with the police. Meanwhile, cities like Chicago, New York, Seattle, Austin, San Antonio, and Denver have all seen protests. And a new CBS News YouGov poll conducted June 4th to 6th, 2 days before President Trump ordered the National Guards to LA, 54% of Americans said that they approved of Trump's deportation policy, and 50% approved of how he's handling immigration. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Well, after the world witnessed a feud between the U.S. President Donald Trump and his former advisor Elon Musk, a patch-up between the Republican leader and the tech billionaire might be in the making.
Well, in an interview, U.S. President said that he is open to mend ties with the Tesla founder, saying, "I have no hard feelings." I was really surprised that happened. He went after a bill that's phenomenal. I think he feels very badly that he said that. Actually, this is what Trump said. Elon Musk also said that he went a little overboard with the tweets that he had put out on that day. Now, Trump's comment comes after Musk publicly apologized for his social media posts about Trump, stating, "I regret some of my posts about President Donald Trump last week. They went too far."
Now, their blistering breakup was largely carried out on social media since Thursday last week. The feud was ignited by Musk's harsh criticism of the Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Spending Bill, which came days after the Tesla founder quit politics.
The tensions reached their peak when Musk published a series of posts linking Trump to the former financier Jeffrey Epstein, who died by suicide in custody in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. Musk, who was Trump's biggest donor to his 2024 campaign, also raised the issue of the Republicans' election win. Trump later said on his Truth Social platform that cutting billions of dollars in subsidies and contracts to Musk's companies would be the easiest way to save the U.S. government money.
And U.S. media put the value of that contracts at $18 billion. With real political and economic risks to their falling out, both appeared to inch back from the brink by their latest statements.
And Myanmar is in the thick of a civil war since its military ousted a democratic government in 2021.
Now, rebels who have been fighting Myanmar junta since the military coup have claimed a rare victory against its air force.
The People's Liberation Army, PLA, an armed wing of a Myanmar communist group, said its fighters downed the plane after 4 days of fierce conflict in central Sagang region. The military swiftly denied their claims, saying that the plane crashed near the central village of Mintang around midday because of sudden engine failure while on a practice flight.
Analysts say junta's air force is backed by Russia and China, which has allowed it to fend off a myriad of lesser-equipped opposition groups, while junta jets have kept opposition forces largely confined to the Myanmar's fringes. They have also been accused of striking civilian targets with impunity.
In May, a junta airstrike on a school in Sagang region, killing at least 22 people, and that included 20 children. Myanmar's borderlands are home to ethnic armed groups who have battled the military since its independence in 1948. Since 2021, 700,000 people have been forced to flee their homes due to the conflict since the military coup in Myanmar.
Aung San Suu Kyi, who was dethroned after her 2020 election victory, remains under arrest on several charges. All right, well, it's now time for a quick short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. When we come back, the 5 key accused in the Meghalaya murder case in connection with the Raja Raghuvanshi murder case, including Sonam Raghuvanshi, have been sent to an 8-day police custody by the court. We'll bring you all the details coming in.
Albert Wong, a digital creator who microblogged on X and Facebook on topical political and social issues, has been arrested in Homa Bay, a town in western Kenya, on Friday. Now we'll get you all the latest on that on the other side.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership.
Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata. We got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over last 5-6 years I've been is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna and I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
They are being moved out. This could be a dangerous place. And, we'll see what happens. But we've given notice to move out and we'll see what happens.
President Donald Trump says U.S. personnel are being moved from the potentially dangerous West Asia amid tensions with Iran, after Tehran said it was capable of hitting U.S. bases across the region if conflict breaks out.
National Guard and Marines undergo civil disturbance training at a Navy SEAL beach ahead of the deployment in Los Angeles to quell protests against anti-immigration crackdown.
A group of 17 Palestinian children, including an 11-year-old boy who lost 9 siblings in an Israel strike in Gaza last month, arrived in Italy for medical treatment.
Russia shares undated footage claiming to show its Tu-22 aircraft, which is the same model which was reported to have been damaged in the Ukrainian attack on Russian airfields.
Violence erupts for a third straight night in Northern Ireland's Ballymena. Police deploy water cannons to disperse rioters.
Meghalaya police officials say special investigation team planning to take suspects in Raja Raghuvanshi murder to reconstruct the crime. Shillong court has remanded the victim's wife Sonam and 4 others accused to 8 days of police custody.
India's weather agency sounds red alert for heatwave conditions in Delhi as maximum temperatures settled over 43 degrees on Wednesday with a feel-like value of nearly 52 degrees.
And gold has overtaken the euro as the world's second largest reserve asset. According to ECB, gold now makes up 20% of global official reserves, surpassing euro's 16% share.
World Anti-Doping Agency calls on U.S. authorities to prevent enhanced games from taking place next year. The global watchdog said the drug-fueled games are dangerous. Well, news from India. The Meghalaya court has remanded all 5 key accused, including Sonam Raghuvanshi, to 8-day police custody in connection with the Raja Raghuvanshi murder case.
Well, Raja and Sonam, they got married last month. They were on their honeymoon in Meghalaya when they went missing. On the 2nd of June, Raja's body was recovered from a gorge, but his wife was still missing. However, a week later, that is on the 9th of June, she was found near an eatery on the Varanasi-Ghazipur main road.
The Superintendent of Police of Meghalaya's East Khasi Hill revealed that there's adequate evidence pointing to the involvement of Sonam, emphasizing that a conclusive confirmation would only emerge after thorough interrogation of those who were involved.
Investigation is going on. We have to confirm a lot of things. There is evidence against Sonam Raghuvanshi of her involvement in the murder. But things will be clearer after the interrogation.
So we can confirm that only after her interrogation.
The police said the special investigation team is planning to take Sonam, Raj Kushba, Vishal Chauhan, Akash Rajput and Anand Kurmi to Sora in Meghalaya and nearby localities to reconstruct the crime scene. Earlier, the police revealed that the cops pursued Sonam as a prime suspect after they found her Mangal Sutra and ring from the suitcase at the homestay in Sora.
According to reports, the couple walked into the homestay on 22nd of May without any prior booking. And not getting a room, they decided to keep their suitcase there and spend the night at another homestay in Nongriat, a village accessible via a 3,000-step trek from Sora.
Now, as new details continue to emerge in this case, Sonam's brother Govind has made a shocking statement, claiming that he's 100% sure of his sister's involvement in the murder case. Addressing the press, Govind demanded severe punishment for his sister in the matter, urging that she should be hanged to death. Also, he distanced himself and his family from Sonam Raghuvanshi, saying that he has apologized to Raja's family and would do anything to make amends for his sister's actions.
I don't know if she has confessed to the crime, but I have made the announcement. If she is guilty, I will make sure she is punished. I am with Raja.
The US policy towards Pakistan's counter-terrorism role appears dangerously confused.
Now, this is pointing to Washington's troubling new strategic alignment with Islamabad. The Trump administration seems to be embarking on a perilous path, potentially falling into Pakistan's well-worn trap once more.
And WION Siddhant Sibal shares more in this next report. Take a look.
Recent developments paint a contradictory picture amid India's growing concerns over cross-border terrorism from Pakistan. General Michael Kurilla, head of US Central Command, praises Pakistan as a phenomenal partner in counter-terrorism, highlighting its capture of 5 high-value ISIS Khorasan operatives and extradition of a key figure in the 2021 Kabul airport bombing. Speaking at a House Armed Services Committee hearing, Kurilla emphasizes Pakistan's anti-ISIS-K efforts, noting military operations in Balochistan and along the Afghan border. Despite 1,000 terrorist attacks in 2024 that killed 700 security personnel and 2,500 civilians,
we have to have a relationship with Pakistan and with India. I do not believe it is a binary switch that we can't have one with Pakistan if we have a relationship with India. We should look at the merits of the relationship for the positives that it has.
Paul Kapoor, Trump's incoming top diplomat for South Asia, stresses upon security cooperation with Pakistan during his Senate Foreign Relations Committee nomination hearing.
Pakistan, if confirmed, I will pursue security cooperation where it is beneficial to U.S. interests, while seeking opportunities for bilateral collaboration in trade and investment.
Conversely, FBI Chief Kash Patel revealed Pakistan's darker side, announcing the extradition of Mohammad Shahzeb Khan, a Pakistani national arrested in Canada for plotting an ISIS-linked mass shooting in New York. At a State Department briefing, spokesperson Tammy Bruce deflected questions about Trump's potential Kashmir mediation, leaving the matter to the White House. Reports suggest Pakistan's newly appointed field marshal will visit the US imminently. Islamabad taking Washington for another ride? History suggests this wouldn't be the first time. During 1971's ping-pong diplomacy, Pakistan facilitated secret US-China talks, leveraging Beijing ties to broker Nixon's historic visit. Earning American goodwill and aid in the 1980s Afghan jihad, Pakistan became the conduit for US and Saudi support to Mujahideen fighting Soviet forces, receiving billions while fostering extremist networks that later fueled regional instability. Islamabad's intelligence services, the ISI, trained and armed fighters, cementing its frontline state role. After the Afghan jihad ended, Pakistan redirected its terror infrastructure against India. Not without reason did India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar term Pakistan a terroristan yesterday in Brussels. Today, Pakistan continues this duplicitous game, offering counter-terrorism cooperation to the US through capturing ISIS-K operatives, whilst simultaneously harboring UN-listed terror groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, responsible for attacks in India. With Siddhant Sibal, Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, imagine having lunch with your family, then all of a sudden, police officers storm your house, arrest one of your family members, whisk them away over 350 kilometers from home, and before you know it, you're told the arrested individual died just an hour after he was booked.
Well, that is a harrowing story of Kenyan blogger Albert Ojwang's family.
Now this is Albert Ojwang, a digital creator who microblogged on social media X and Facebook on topical political and social issues. He was arrested in Homa Bay, a town in western Kenya, on Friday.
The 31-year-old was subsequently transferred over 350 kilometers, that's about 220 miles, to the capital, Nairobi. His death has sparked widespread outrage in Kenya.
The family agrees with the results because the results vindicates what we suspected all along, that the injuries that caused the death of our friend were not self-inflicted. The family begs to know who indeed inflicted these injuries on the body of their son.
Now, that was the family's lawyer. The victim's father was seated next to him while he read the autopsy report, which contradicted police claims. It revealed that Ojwang was hit on the head and his death was likely to have been caused by an assault.
Ever since his death, hundreds of young people have been protesting outside the police station. Some even stormed the city mortuary, demanding an authentic and transparent post-mortem because nobody believed the narrative by the police.
So we are here today to call on the Deputy Inspector General, Eliud Langat, to resign. He cannot instruct police officers 400 kilometers away to pick an individual and bring him all the way to Central Police Station.
They are seriously lying to us. They are killing us and keep on lying to us. We will not accept that at all. Albert Ojwang must get justice. We will be here every day. This is just the beginning.
Kenya's Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, has also ruled out the possibility that Ojwang might have killed himself. The agency added that its pre-findings show that CCTV systems at the Central Police Station had been interfered with.
The President, William Ruto, also reacted with shock in a post on social media. He wrote, I quote him here, "This tragic occurrence at the hands of the police is heartbreaking and unacceptable." Ruto cautioned the public against making premature judgments or drawing conclusions that could compromise the process and its outcome.
The police have, however, maintained their narrative. In this late statement, they argue that Ojwang bashed his head against the cell wall, which forced them to rush the victim to the hospital where he was pronounced dead.
His death has indeed ignited Kenya. Both houses of parliament spent hours debating over what action should be taken against the politician and officers involved in his murder. Now, human rights groups have demanded more action, terming the blogger's death as a possible attempt to silence the digital community through intimidation and fear. The US president has declared a breakthrough in the much anticipated trade deal with China.
But can investors, businesses and consumers really expect normalcy? Well, for now, that still seems a distant promise. The US president announced that both sides have reached a framework agreement after nearly 20 hours of high-stakes and talks in London. The deal revives the long-stalled Geneva Consensus and crucially brings China's rare earth exports back online, materials vital for American cars, smartphones and defense systems.
Trump says the US will keep a total tariff of 56% on Chinese goods. That includes a 30% base tariff and a 25% levy on select products. China, in return, applies a flat 10% tariff and will resume shipments of rare earths and full magnets to the US. The framework still needs a final nod from both Trump and President of China, Xi Jinping.
At the heart of the deal lies China's grip on rare earths used in everything from electric vehicles to medical devices. China controls more than 70% of global mining, nearly 90% of refining. This deal, if it holds, promises upfront supply of key materials.
The US also agreed to allow Chinese students to return to American universities, an issue Beijing had pushed for. But key sticking points remain unresolved. China wants Washington to ease restrictions on semiconductor design, software and jet engine components, and that demand is still on the table. Meanwhile, US seeks more responsibility on the part of China to manage its export dependence.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent flagged the trade imbalance in China's economy, calling for more checks on its domestic indicators and exports.
China currently has the most imbalanced economy in the history of the world. They now have an approximate 30% share of global manufacturing, and they continually grow their manufacturing base. They are in the midst of a real estate downturn, some may cause a crisis, and they are trying to export their way out of it rather than take domestic measures such as increasing consumption, dealing with banking problems, or dealing with the real estate crisis. They cannot be allowed to export their way back to prosperity, which would mean substantial decreases in the standards of living, not only for the United States working Americans, but for working citizens across the world.
The impact of this deal, if fully implemented, could be significant. For businesses, it could mean fewer delays and lower input costs. For consumers, it may ease price pressures, but the road to recovery won't be smooth. Tech giants like Apple are already feeling the squeeze. The company estimates a $900 million hit per quarter from current tariffs.
Meanwhile, Chinese e-commerce giants like Shein and Temu are reeling after the U.S. closed the $800 tariff-free import loophole.
The broader context matters here. Trump's earlier tariffs had reached a peak of over 200%, effectively freezing bilateral trade. Economists had warned of recessionary risks, and this agreement might offer a temporary thaw, but deep-rooted mistrust, structural trade barriers and strategic rivalries will take much longer to resolve.
Well, for now, Wall Street is watching. Investors want calm, but they also know that one handshake does not end a trade war. And while gold is now officially leading the race against the US dollar, surpassing the euro to become the second largest global reserve asset.
Now, according to the European Central Bank, gold accounted for 20% of global official reserves at the end of 2024, overtaking the euro's 16%. The US dollar still leads at 46%, but its dominance is gradually declining. 2024 marked the third straight year of record gold buying by central banks, with over 1,000 tons added annually, double the pace since seen in the 2010s.
Several key factors are driving the surge in gold's reserve status. Rising geopolitical tensions have accelerated central bank diversification away from the dollar. According to the ECB, 2/3 of reserve managers hold gold for diversification, while 40% cite protection from geopolitical risk. The shift intensified after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Countries aligned with China and Russia have significantly increased gold holdings since late 2021. Reflecting a broader de-dollarization trend.
Global central bank gold reserves have climbed to 36,000 tons, approaching the Bretton Woods era peak of 38,000 tons. Central banks now account for over 20% of global gold demand, up from just 10%, which was a decade ago. However, some signs suggest the pace may cool. Purchases fell 33% in the first quarter of 2025, driven by slower buying from China. Still, with 80% of reserve managers citing geopolitics as a key influence for the next decade, gold is expected to retain its strategic importance even if buying stabilizes at lower levels. And over to sports. Defending champions Australia wrestled back control of the World Test Championship final against South Africa.
A fiery spell from Mitchell Starc left the Proteas reeling at 43 for 4 at stumps on day one after Australia were bowled out for 212.
Opting to field first in overcast conditions, South Africa got off to the perfect start. After keeping the Australian openers under a tight leash, Kagiso Rabada struck twice in 4 balls to remove Usman Khawaja and Cameron Green in the 7th over. Khawaja fell for a 20-ball duck, while Green managed just 4 runs off 3 balls. Marnus Labuschagne who was promoted to open the innings, led a mini recovery with Steve Smith before Marco Jansen sent him packing as well. The lanky pacer also dismissed the dangerous Travis Head to reduce the defending champions to 67 for 4 by lunch. Smith and Bo Webster wrestled back control for Australia in the second session, and the pair put up a 79-run stand before Smith fell for 66.
Webster too reached his half-century as the Aussies scored 123 runs in the second session. South Africa were back on top after tea. The reintroduction of Rabada did the trick for the Proteas. The pacer finished with the figures of 5 for 51 as Australia were bowled out of 212 in the first innings. Jansen picked up 3 wickets while Keshav Maharaj and Aiden Makram chipped in with each.
The sun was out in the London skies, but it set quickly for South Africa's batters. Mitchell Starc removed Aiden Markram for a duck in the very first over. The Proteas remained shaky and were 2 down with just 19 on the board. It was again Starc who struck for the defending champions. Then skipper Pat Cummins joined that party, dismissing Wian Mulder as South Africa slipped 225 for 3 inside 16 overs. Josh Hazlewood added to their troubles, removing Tristan Stubbs for just 2 runs. As South Africa ended the day 169 runs behind the Aussies.
Our next story is a special one for How to Train Your Dragon fans.
And of course, the cast members of the upcoming live-action movie gave WION an exclusive sneak peek inside their sets in Burke Island, shooting schedules and also breathtaking locations across Northern Ireland. More on this next report. Take a look.
All right, with that, we call a wrap to this edition of World DNA. But don't